Welcome to Complete Edition, the podcast between a PlayStation Trophy Hunter and an Xbox Achievement Hunter. This is episode 8. I'm your host, Compulsive Nerd, and I am joined by AJ. And how you doing, AJ?
I'm doing well. My week started off pretty quiet and then got really busy all of a sudden, so I haven't had too much time to be gaming, but I'm pretty close to another completion, so I'm getting some hours in. It's not like that week where I played Hades for like 40 hours. It's nowhere near that level.
Yeah, and same for me. this is my second week of school, and the first week was like still syllabus week, and then this is the week where I'm like starting to get adjusted to the time. And now I've almost got a schedule, and once I get it, I'm going to be able to game so much more. Hopefully after this situation where I'm going out of town for the meet and greet, I think things will settle down and I'll be able to game a lot more, but I'm only bringing one game this week because that's all I played. I mean, I did purchase MLB The Show 21 for PlayStation. I got it on Mercari, and it was like $32, and I was like, fuck yeah. I want another baseball platinum, and this is like the newest game, so that would be really fun for me to hunt, and it might be something that I take with me over, through winter, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not going to be something that I just sit down and do it all in one go. It's like, I'm going to play baseball when I'm feeling it and like run with it that way.
Yeah, I've heard it's a pretty good list as well, given some sports games are like absolute nightmares to complete, apparently that one's not too bad.
Even I have played other MLB games and I have them on my list, and they totally fucked up my completion percentage because they have ridiculous RNG trophies or card trophies or something stupid where it just completely fucks the platinum journey. And sports games, you know how they work with their servers, so it just seems like they shut that stuff down so that you have to buy the next one. And if there's any trophies tied to servers like that, then you're totally fucked. And
Yeah. I mean, it's a shame with sports games and racing games as well. I've noticed Xbox. I mean, EA do it as well, but there's a lot of like Forza Motorsport 7. I think is being delisted completely on September 15th, and the game only came out like 4 years ago. And I know like obviously Xbox and Microsoft they don't want to delist the game and not be able to sell it anymore, because why would you? Why would you ever want to do that? It must be for licensing reasons, but I wish they were able to get longer licenses and do better, because yeah, you feel like all these games in sports and racing, it's like they've got a hidden expiration date on them that's pretty much in the near future, which really sucks.
that really does suck, and it doesn't feel good. But like we were talking about with MLB 21, it's not that way. The trophy list seems very catered towards this very specific game, and it's not tied to anything outside of the game, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's good.
And I'll go ahead and I'll start talking about what I'm chasing, because I have been chasing Persona 4 Golden all week. I have been just rushing through the campaign, so I'm like all the way at the end. I literally am facing the last boss, and then what I have to do is I have to get this secret boss on the very last day of the game, and as soon as I beat that boss, I will pop the platinum. And I think I can do it in the next hour or two. So
Oh hell yeah.
this morning I woke up and like I rolled over, and like it was only like 9 a.m. but I was like, oh, grab the Vita, and I'm like, let's go. I start like playing it, and I like tried to get as far as I could. And then before the show, I'm like rushing to write it, and I'm rushing to do everything, and then I'm like playing the game, I'm eating lunch, and I'm like, come on, I can fucking get this before the show, and then be like, I got the platinum. But I didn't make it, so I think I can get it done real soon.
Have you ever, when you replay games, like it's definitely happened to me, especially with long RPGs, where it's like you think you're closer to the end than you are, and then you forget like some sections of it where you're like, oh shit, like there's an extra half an hour or sometimes an extra like 5 hours that I just totally didn't account for, because it just sort of all blurred together on my first playthrough, because that happens to me a ton in games sometimes when they're like really long and you've already played it once, but it was like some time ago.
Yep, absolutely. That happened to me last night. I got to a specific dungeon, and whenever when I visually saw it, I was like, oh fuck, I remember this dungeon, and I forgot how tedious it is and how much longer it's gonna take for me to get through this one, because it has a specific, like, you go up 2 floors and then you go to the boss room, because the boss room is on the second floor, and then it's like, oh no, you can't reach this, so then you have to like backtrack into this hole in the ground on the second floor, and then it goes up. So you keep going, you go like 6 or 7 floors up after that, grab what you need, come back all the way down to floor 2, and then you go back to the boss room, which was locked in the first place. And it's like, that whole process of doing that, I was like, oh no, I totally forgot I had to fucking do this whole thing. It's not like I can just run to the top and get through the boss room, and it's going to kick me back out, and then I'm going to be done with this dungeon. It's like, it's a puzzle-ish kind of one, and I'm like, oh god damn it. And that slowed me down. But Persona 4 Golden has a nice little feature, and Persona 5 too, where when you've beaten the game, well, it's actually available when you haven't, but to use this feature when you haven't beat the game is straight up stupid. You can press the start button twice, and it fast forwards all conversation, like completely. It just, like it's a visual novel type of game, so there's just a ton of dialogue, and you'll just see all the dialogue pop up and like skim through, and it's in like fast forward, and it knocks out whole days so much faster, because I mean, it's like a 90-hour game, and I'm like 25, 30 hours in, and I'm completed it. You know what I mean? Like, it flies through. And so that's what I do. And I get into a boss fight, and I skip the dialogue, and then take them out, skip through, and I'm just running through. But I have taken a knee a couple times where I take a second to appreciate some of the characters that I really loved in the game. Like Rize. Rize is best girl, and that's going to be super controversial, but she is. She's absolutely the best.
Yeah, I mean, I've got no idea what that even means, so I'm just like, I'm just totally dead-eyed hearing that. Like, there was no emotional response at all from me to what you just said. But I'm sure people who do know about the game and care about that, you know,
yeah, someone just threw their phone.
Degenerate weeb garbage is just going to be like, "Oh no," or "Yay," or whatever.
Exactly. They're gonna be arguing about a different girl for sure. Yeah, I'm gonna finish that, and then I think I'm actually thinking about downloading another game tonight before I leave, so that I can play it on the plane, or I can play it when I'm at the meetup or whatever, and maybe hunt something new on my Vita while I'm on the go. I think that'll be fun.
Yeah, I've with the Xbox like cloud streaming, xCloud Game Pass stuff, I've been considering getting one of those like Razer Backbones or whatever or Razer Kishi. Sorry, the Backbone's a different company. Just for when I'm like on the train or traveling to work or something, and just being able to play games when I have like a dull moment. But I've never got into that. I guess I definitely prefer handhelds like the Vita or the PSP or the DS, because all of the games are made with it in mind in terms of like the HUD scaling and the UI and everything, whereas I don't have as much faith in something like xCloud, where it's just it's sort of a much quicker port to that sort of play style, that I'm sort of like, there's so many games where it won't work well. I already know it won't work well. So I sort of can't be bothered to do that background research of like, oh, I'm playing this game, but if I want to play a game on my phone, I need to, you know, I need to make sure it's this different game because that game doesn't work very well or it's not on the service. So I'm just like, I can't be bothered to deal with it right now. But that is a good idea to be trophy hunting on the go.
Absolutely. And that's the thing is, like, I mean, I can say, as a matter of fact, like, the technology in the Switch is better. And I've played games on the Switch, but there's just that lack of satisfaction in, like, not having a list. And I mean, I played Hades on there, but I didn't complete Hades. I went as far as I could, and then the ending grind where you have to, like, get all the gods to the table, if you know what I'm talking about. And
yeah,
I'm not gonna do this. If it was for a trophy, I would, but I'm not gonna do this just to do this. And it's really nice to have the Vita because it is tied to the trophy system, and it has really fun games on there. And even though it's a dead console, like, or handheld, it's still fun to, like, grab the games that were highly acclaimed and just mow through them. Because, like, Persona 4, dude, I am so surprised by how much I love this game. Like, I put it off for so long, and then I finally got around to it, and I'm so happy I did because I'm like, I'm a little bit in that space where I'm thinking, will the next game I play be as good as Persona 4 Golden? Like, like that's where I'm at, and I'm sure they'll be different. It's not going to be another JRPG that I play, but it just has me questioning, like, if games can be this damn good on Vita, then what am I in for, you know?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I wouldn't expect stuff to hold up to that. I mean, it's tough when you play a super long game as well because you get that. There's that meme of like Quentin Tarantino just like stood in different places in a house and he's just like looking out of a window and he's.
I love that meme.
That's the mood you get when you finish a super long RPG or a game you've really enjoyed that is also like 50 hours or 50 to 200 hours. That you're just like, well, what now? Like, it feels like it's like a month's worth or like 3 weeks worth of gaming has been focused on this and like all of the knowledge you've built up, and it's just like, I don't know if I'm ready to start again. So it's tough sometimes transitioning from a game like that to something else.
It is, but I have a giant list that I made, so I'm gonna look through it, maybe throw some of the options out to people in the Discord, and see what people say.
Yeah, that's a good way to do it. I sometimes do that where I ask people or ask a Discord server. I'm like, I'm considering these games. Please vote for one of them, and then that's a good way to commit to something.
Absolutely. What about you? What have you? What game did you play during this week?
I played. So yeah, I only played one, but it's a banger. I'm really enjoying it. I was playing Dishonored: Death of the Outsider. I don't know if you've played this game.
I have not.
Have you played any of the Dishonored games?
No, and I always wanted to. I started Dishonored 1 and I got to like the prison and then I quit. I was like, I'm not in the mood.
Okay. I think they're really good. And I don't know, I feel like I've played Dishonored 1 and I got every achievement in the base game. There's a really annoying DLC where it's like the DLC is minigame challenges and the achievements are way harder than anything else. So I have over 1,000 points in the 360 version and the Xbox One version, and I guess if the game had a platinum, I would have the platinum in both of them, but I don't have all of the DLC lists. And then in Dishonored 2, I have the full 1,000 points as well, and I think they're fantastic, but over time I was sort of like, maybe they weren't that good. So going back into Dishonored: Death of the Outsider, which is it's sort of like Wolfenstein. Trying to think of what it's called. It's Wolfenstein: The Old Blood, I believe, where it's a full game you can buy separately, but it's basically like a big expansion, like a 5 to 8 hour expansion, essentially sold separately and sold for like £40 instead of £60 or your equivalent. And then this has a similar structure to that. I don't know if Bethesda were just sort of doing that for a while. And it's really good. It was really good when I didn't have that much time. I think the game is only like 5 levels long or something, and 2 of those levels are like 10 minutes. So it's really a quick experience, a tight experience. And I'm also really glad that I waited to play this because it got FPS boost on Xbox, and I'm shocked, like really shocked at the difference the FPS boost has. Because I was going to ask you if you'd had this experience, but you won't have. In Dishonored and Prey, for some reason, on console, the aiming feels quite sluggish compared to aiming for other first-person games. And it's like, it's very hard to explain without someone having a controller in their hand and trying it, but there's almost, in some PC games you get this, there's this mouse acceleration with how you look. And
Yes.
Some console games have it, but few console games have it. Essentially, there's like analog stick acceleration, but that acceleration combined with the 30 frames per second, you get less visual feedback on the acceleration when you move the sticks. This is the way it works in my mind anyway. I don't know if there's... I'm being maybe a little technical for something I don't... I've not looked into the code or anything, but in terms of how it feels, it's like you don't get visual feedback from the screen refreshing and the frame rate enough to compensate for the differences in acceleration and differences in speed as you move the stick. So it feels really imprecise when you try to aim. at certain times. And the reason they have this acceleration, it makes sense from a design perspective because there's sometimes in the game where you'll want to pick up like keys off of someone or like pickpocket someone or just pick up small objects. So they want the aiming to be quite slow and precise when you first move the stick, but then also it's an action game, so you're stabbing people and shooting at people sometimes and moving around stealthily, and you might have to quickly teleport somewhere. So they also don't want the aiming to be so sluggish that you can't escape quickly or fight enemies quickly. So it seems like that's why they've chosen to do it, so that they want you to be able to precisely aim at small objects, but also be able to move around quite quickly and rapidly turn. So I don't know what the solution is, but one sort of coincidental solution, I suppose, is boosting the frame rate to 60 frames per second, because you essentially get double the timing window or double the amount of information to you as you're aiming, that it makes it feel so much more smooth to move around, and you just feel so much more consistent. I don't know if I think the resolution might drop when you enable FPS boost, but it's so worth it. I can't believe how worth it is. The game isn't so fast paced that I thought it would be a huge change. Like I didn't think it would be, but then when I first started playing, I'm like, oh wow, this aiming is really awkward, and it's so much better with the FPS boost. So I think it's something where if you don't have it, you'll get used to it. I think aiming in any first-person game, because every first-person game does it slightly differently, and you can't really like put into words how it's different. There's almost always this readjustment period when you go from one to another. So I think you can get used to it without it, but I would recommend playing it with FPS boost if it's an option, or playing it on PC. Or I think one of the Dishonored games might have got a next-gen patch or something somewhere as well. But that's been great, and I'm glad I waited because of that, for sure. And the loading times are amazing as well now on the next-gen systems. It's a game where, because it's a stealth game, there's a level of trial and error if you're trying to do things perfectly. You know, where like you get spotted and then you want to restart the checkpoint or reload a save. And again, because it definitely seems PC-focused, maybe in its design it's even got a quick load and quick save button, kind of like PC games will. And that's perfect for moving to an SSD, because you can just really quickly quick load and it will just teleport you back. Essentially, it will give you like a 2-second loading screen and then get you in there. And I imagine on older hardware, on Xbox One and PS4, where the game first came out, it must take like 20-30 seconds or something. So that's really great as well. So it's a great time to get into it in terms of as a game that you can really see how backwards compatibility, I'm sure on PS5 as well as Series X, has really improved the game.
Absolutely. And dude, the thing is, like, you're talking all about that frame rate boost, and you know, I've said it over and over, but like, I did not care about frame rate before this generation, and even when games were 60 frames per second on last gen, I couldn't tell. Like, I don't know what it was. Maybe it wasn't because it was consistent all the time, where I was always getting 60 frames per second games, but like, I can see 30 frames per second now, which I couldn't before. Like, I don't know where that trigger in my brain happened. And like, next gen alone for 60 frames per second, and all that time that my PC friends were like, oh, you playing this game in 30 frames per second? I'm like, I have no idea. I had no clue. I was just playing the console games that I had. And it didn't matter how they looked. Like, I was like, it's a 4K console, at least I can play in 4K, all this stuff. And then now with next gen like being here, I am noticing how games feel different, and the frame rate boosts are like they just make games prettier even with a lower resolution, because it's not like blurry or choppy. And I love that. I think that it's so worth it just with the next gen in that case. But like, as they optimize the tech and they get higher textures, and like, you know, Spider-Man Miles Morales on PS5 has a 60 frame per second ray tracing mode. And it's like, finding the balance where you can get some ray tracing and 60 frames per second is going to be the highlight for video games, because that shit looks great. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get that, definitely. And yeah, I was like you to some extent. I feel like I could always notice the difference, but it was something where, and I still kind of think this, for some games it definitely matters way more than for others. Like, when I play Halo Infinite, I'll probably want to play it definitely at least at 60, but probably at 120, at least in the multiplayer, because it literally gives you a reaction time advantage if you play that game at a higher frame rate in terms of multiplayer and multiplayer shooters. There's no way I'd play like the 30 if there was a 30 FPS 4K mode. I think on base Xbox One it's going to be 30. Yeah, I don't know how people are going to deal with that because it's going to be a nightmare. But yeah, it to some extent it depends on the game. But I definitely notice, and I really appreciate both the patches that some developers are doing, and then also the hardware team at Xbox are doing that FPS boost stuff themselves for games, which is really cool. So in terms of the game itself, I haven't really talked about it much, but it's more Dishonored, so it's very classic Arcane. It's stealthy. It's very open ended in terms of the way you can approach situations. The best games to compare it to would be the Hitman games, I feel like, and then also it's sort of an immersive sim, although it's not very. If it was an immersive sim, it's not particularly broad. Like you can go action or stealth, but the game heavily incentivizes stealth, and the action approach is perhaps less interesting because the way Arcane make games, at least the way they make Dishonored games, is it's this like huge building or like these city streets that are so dense, they're quite small, they're quite dense, with tons of alternate pathways and different routes in and different ways to distract people and be stealthy and climb over rooftops and things like that. So if you play it as a pure action game and just like run in the front gate to like every level and just kill everyone, you're totally going to miss all of that design and all of that effort. And there's some cool stuff in the combat, but it really feels like you should be playing this at least partially stealthy in terms of how you approach the levels. But they're really impressive. There was this amazing level where you have to rob a bank, and it's so good. I hate to break the flow of the episode, but one of my I had two achievements of the week, and one of them was this achievement, The Perfect Crime, where you have to empty the bank vault without tampering with any security systems, and you have to leave everyone unharmed and asleep. So, unharmed and asleep is interesting because you can knock people out in this game, like by going behind them and choking them out. And if you do that, that doesn't count as them being unharmed. That's like knocking them out but harming them. So you don't get the achievement. So what you have to do in that level is you go to, like, this isn't even related to the bank heist directly. You go to an auction that's happening nearby because a pharmacist, their shop has closed down and they're selling all of their stuff. So you go to an auction, and you can't just go to the auction as yourself because everyone will just start shooting at you. So you have to go steal someone's identity, go to the auction, and then bid on the lot that they're selling. And then when you get that, you get essentially a sleeping potion that you can then sneak to the rooftop of the bank and put it in the ventilation system, and it will knock out every single enemy in the bank where the main mission is. And it's just stuff like that where I love that they have just that level of depth to the environment. Most people won't even find the auction, and they won't know to steal disguises and pretend to be someone else and to bid on the items. They might just go in and kill everyone and then steal the items, and that's totally valid as well. And then people just won't even know about it or won't even look into it, and will just go in the bank. And it's awesome.
Yeah, and that's actually one of the reasons why I started trophy hunting. Like, the very first experience I had where I was tied, it was, treasures from Uncharted were tied to the trophies, which they're just collectibles. But my brain was like, oh my gosh, I'm getting things that other people don't know are in the game. And like, that for me was like, it was like, oh, this is so cool. I'm knowing stuff about the game that other people do not. There's little Easter eggs, like the Jak and Daxter orbs are in the game, and like I had that feeling where it's like other people won't see this, and that's what you are having with this trophy or achievement of the week that you mentioned, where it's a whole part of this game that people won't see if they don't achievement hunt. And I think that is such a fun aspect of doing games this way or playing games this way.
Yeah, what I really love about it as well is that achievement. There's an entire other dimension to it in the sense that so you have to get everyone in the bank unconscious without knocking them out physically, but also you have to complete the heist without disabling any security systems. So when you go in the bank, there's a bunch of these like clockwork robots, and then there's electric fences, and then there's also these like electric pylons that will, if you get anywhere near its radius, it will just instantly kill you. And there's also electrified floors as well. So what's really great about this achievement is it's not like once you figure out how to knock everyone out, it's not like that's the challenge over. It's not like, oh, everyone's just knocked out, I'm just gonna go in and loot the vault and then that's it. You then have this other layer of challenge where you have to get through it without disabling any security. So you've got to find ways past the security without just going like, oh, I'll just go to this box and turn everything off, which you can do. So to make that level super optimized and easy, you just knock everyone out and then you disable the security and then you just take everything for free. But the game's like, no, you can't do that. You've got to knock them out, but you can't disable the security as well. You have to make it so no one would ever know you were there at all for whatever reason. So it's such a great challenge in that sense that there's so many layers to that achievement and to how you can approach that level. And then when you steal from the vault, there's multiple ways you can get into the vault, and the way I did it was the vault is like held up in like you can collapse the vault through the floor and like into the river by getting this brake lever and putting it like on the top and removing like the brakes from like an elevator and stuff. It's amazing. Or you can just like go in the vault the normal way, but instead you just send it like crashing through the floor, and then the vault's also submerged underwater as well, and you have to get in that. Like it's so cool.
That sounds so cool. You make me want to play it.
Yeah, it's an amazing level, and all the Dishonored games have like at least one level like this, but if not more. And it's the fact that the game devs are like, here you go, just like you figure it out. Like we're not going to force you into, like we've got this really amazing set piece, but you are making it yourself and you discover it yourself, and it's in a way that few games give you the control of. Like it's not scripted. Obviously it is, it's designed into the game, but you could just totally miss all of that or do it entirely different ways, and it's great. So I highly recommend it. I'm having a great time with it, and the achievements are pretty quick. You can get all the achievements in probably about 10 hours. I have to go back and do a playthrough in this New Game Plus mode, and I have to beat the game without being detected once, which will probably be the hardest achievement. On my first playthrough, I got all the contracts and the collectibles, and didn't worry too much about getting spotted, because some of the contracts require you to do stuff where you pretty much have to get detected. So 2 playthroughs definitely recommended, but the game's short, and it's the type of game you want to play it twice, because you want to find different ways to solve the levels, and it's really satisfying to go back into a level after you're like, okay, so I understand the lay of the land, like I understand the map, I understand where I need to go, I understand what I need to do. Because on your first time, maybe this is a weakness of the game, although it's just sort of baked in. There's nothing they can really do to solve it, but because of how dense the world is, it can be a bit intimidating the first time. The first time you play it, you're sort of like, well, I'm going to fail a few times because I just need to understand the map and understand the routes and understand the different people I can talk to and the options and how to not get like busted or discovered, or how to avoid dead ends and things like that. But that ultimately makes second and third playthroughs even more satisfying. So yeah, highly recommended. It's on Game Pass. It's probably very cheap as well. It goes on sale a lot. So yeah, highly recommend. Really enjoying it. Really glad that this is, the one game I got to play this week. I'm glad it was such a great experience.
Right, and it's in your like one of your favorite genres, and if not your favorite, it might have been your number one.
Yeah, it's Bethesda as well, right? I talked about they were like one of my top publishers for, if not my number one publisher for achievement hunting. So
right,
it fits with that too.
I don't know. It's amazing to do all of that and to be able to play games over and over and have it be different every time. But let's go ahead and and move on to the topic on the table, which I think this is going to be really, really fun to kind of get the experience of like what it's like with your friends and being a completionist. My friends have all, like one of my friends, he hates that I'm a
Yeah, so we
completionist.
should. Yeah, we should. So yeah, the topic is that how different people in our lives and friends have interpreted achievement hunting and how they feel about it, right?
Right. And if like I have a ton of trophy and achievement hunting friends, like on PSN and on PC, like online friends. But my real life friends, like my very very best friend, he hates that I achievement hunt or trophy hunt. He just flat out thinks it ruins games. It's not like a fun thing, and I'm like, I mean, to each their own. I have a ton of fun doing it, and I've always had debates with him, but then there's games where he has tried to platinum them. He only has like 3, but it's like he enjoys it enough where he starts to go and he does it. And it's like there's just something about wanting to get more out of a game and taking that experience a little further. And in the way that I play, like my whole life, I don't know why this happens, but like whenever someone hears that you're completing games, like it has influenced my friends to also complete games. Like a lot of my closest friends, like in real life, they have like 20 or more completions. That isn't a small number. Like you have to go and really attempt to get those achievements. And I find it so much fun, but I have so many close friends where when they see me getting a platinum or something, they'll ask me on PSN. They'll be like, we'll communicate with each other and we'll be like, hey, I'm going to play that game next. Any advice or anything like that? And it kind of brings like a community aspect to trophy hunting this way. And I just kind of wanted to know about your experience in your life and like how all of that ties together.
My real life friends definitely aren't hunters, but I would categorize kind of what you were talking about. I kind of say some of them are sort of semi hunters, and you know, the type of gamer, I guess, where if they really really love a game, they'll go back and get every achievement. And some of my friends definitely do that, and it's not just as well because I think almost everyone will get a completion if it's for a game that they really like, and also it's really easy. Like you basically get the completion automatically just from playing the game. There's some games like that, right? So I want to be clear that the reason I say they're kind of like semi hunters is because my real life friends, they will do that for games that they love, even if it's like a really hard completion. So I've got a friend who has the Slay the Spire completion, which I have, which takes ages. They have some Halo completions that are really hard. They have all the Fallout games completed, so not easy. You know, these are long games, these are really challenging games. So they're sort of on that level where they won't try and complete every game or most games. They won't care about getting like 800 out of 1,000 or something. That even that they'll just play whatever. But then if a game really hooks them and really gets them, they're like, I want to do everything in this game and I want to get every achievement. So that's sort of where my real life friends are mostly on that.
Do you have anyone who do you have anyone who hates it? Like hates that you do it?
No, I don't think there's anyone really like that. Yeah, there's no one. There's no one who I've ever like, I guess like butted heads with and like argued about it, or that, or they've been like, oh, you know, this sucks or whatever. I think as well, I've on influencing people to achievement hunt. I've sort of done it, but not in terms of single player stuff. Usually, it'll be if there's a co-op game like a Way Out or a game like Left 4 Dead or Spec Ops in Call of Duty, where if I'm going to play it with a friend, I'll be like, hey, we can get these achievements, and you know, I want to get these achievements, and then we'll have a full fun time just going about that, like having that as an extra challenge and an extra thing to do together. And it's never been enough encouragement or anything, and I'm not, you know, I'm not really interested in telling people what they should and shouldn't do or how they should or shouldn't play games for the most part. So it's not, you know, I understand that the what you're saying, of course, is that the passion that you have and the fun that you have then sort of rubs off, and other people want to get that drive, and that's great, and that's something I you know, like to do and encourage in that way. But there's no, I never really press a recommendation on completions or anything in terms of real life friends. I've definitely had experiences where they wouldn't have gone out of their way in some co-op stuff or thought to without my influence, and we've both really enjoyed it and been proud of the achievement. I've done that in Payday 2 as well with people. So yeah, that's sort of the level where my real life friends are with achievement hunting.
Absolutely, and I'm totally with you on the influencing on co-op games. Like one of my best friends and I played It Takes Two together, and because of that, he like went after the trophies as the same as I did because we were getting them almost at the same time, and then I already knew like what I needed to do on a level to get a trophy, and he would follow, and then he would attempt it at like the same time or the same location that I was. Because I mean, in It Takes Two, it was so awesome. There was like this platforming tower that you had to climb, and it was really difficult. It was just so much fun to like sit there for like 15 minutes and try to climb this tower, and like see who could get up to the top first and things like that. But it's just like being able to bring someone along is like, I'm doing this, you might as well too. And if they don't want to, they don't have to. Because I also played another game, A Way Out, and I played that with a different best friend of mine. Like I was like, do you want to get this trophy? And he's like, nah, I'm good. And it's like, it's right here. But he's like, I'm good. He's the one who's just like, I'm not about it. And I was like, all right. And then I just got the trophies, all of the trophies with him, and he was a good sport and like helping me get through it and accommodating for any trophies that we need to get together. But he didn't attempt it. And it just is interesting in a game where you work together, where one of us wants to do something and the other doesn't, and it still made us, we still work together, and he's been my best friend since 5th grade, so we've known each other a very, very long time.
I think what you're saying has triggered sort of a memory of there's some games where, again, Payday 2 is a good example. There's some really, really hard achievements in Payday 2. And it's something where there's stuff where it'll be like, hey, let's play Payday 2 and let's do these things and we'll get some achievements. And that'll be usually a pretty easy experience. If the achievement is like, we're going to have to attempt this for like 8 hours and die over and over again, I'll maybe try it. Like I'll maybe try to pitch that to an IRL, friend, but I'll also be like, it's whatever, right? Like I don't expect you to endure and like put up with it and have to deal with that. So there's a level of mutual respect for each other's time and what we like to do. Because for me, I'm like, there's some challenges where it's almost hell yeah, this is going to take me 8 hours of attempts. Like I'll keep bashing my head against the wall until I get it. Like I like the pain almost, and because it makes the achievement even better. But most people aren't wired that way, and I don't want to be an asshole that's like, let's keep going, let's just go for 15 hours and we'll get it right. Obviously it doesn't work like that. So there's a level of understanding where it's like my friends know I go for achievements, so they'll be cognizant and they'll keep it in mind. They'll be like, oh, AJ wants to play this thing with me, and he's probably going to want to get some achievements and go out of the way to get it sometimes, and that's fine. But also from me, it's not like, I'm not going to be the guy who's like, hey, let's play this, but I'm only going to play it if we do this thing, and this thing is also really difficult and it's going to take ages. Like I know that they're not going to be up for that, so it's not something I'd ever do. Also, I wanted to say on the achievement of the week thing, I have a second one. I fixed the structure of the show.
Keeping it in the pocket. Yeah, and you were talking about how your friends kind of accommodate to that, and you wouldn't make them grind. But I've grown a lot as a person since I was a kid, and in high school is whenever I kind of started trophy hunting, probably like around my sophomore year, and I was an asshole. Like I would be like, "Yo, play this game with me so that we can get these achievements," instead of being like, "Hey, do you want to tag along and help me get these achievements?" I was like, "Do it. You should do it. You should do this with me." And it's like, as I've gotten older, I've been like, you know what? If you don't want to, that's fine. The internet is here. I can do that, Like I can spread the wealth. I can try to attempt to connect with different friends to do this and not force anyone to do it. And like I said, that's just personal growth. And I still love to trophy and achievement hunt with my friends. And I think I've been talking to one of my friends who's on PC, and his PC broke, and he's kind of over it. It seems like he wants to get back into the consoles. He's like really excited to get a PS5, and it almost seems like he wants to trophy hunt too. And I'm like, that is really fun because it's just so different. Like, it's a different kind of gaming experience, and yeah, PC is definitely like the best quality place to play, but I don't know, like, I'm not big on mouse and keyboard, even though you're going to have faster reaction time with first person shooters and things like that, better accuracy, all that. But there's something about the controller, the ecosystem, the trophies, like I said, just like all the profile connections, like it is such an awesome thing to be so immersed in one place. And I play PC whenever there's a game I can't get on PlayStation. It's really cool to just see like my friends take interest in something that I've been doing for so long, and like it's so fun to mention like, oh yeah dude, I have 211 completions now, and they're like, what? Oh my god. And it's like, but you have 20. You're almost a quarter of a way to have 100. Like, that's not a small thing either. You know what I mean? It just is, I've been doing it for so long that I have a higher number. But if you are in a place where it's not a low number, it's a very good number, and it's.
Well,
what were you?
also because of the way like achievements and trophies are inflated now, the number feels less relevant than ever. Like if those 20 are like super difficult, right? Like that. I wonder how bad you could get the disparity. Like you could probably get maybe 200 really easy completions you can get, and then you could get, like, if someone had like the 5 hardest completions, and then someone else has like 150 Ratalaka games or something. Like,
yes.
You know, so you know, every game is special and independent as well, right? Like the number itself isn't necessarily too indicative of how good you are, or how interested in games you are, or how devoted to the grind you are, or any of that.
Exactly. And I have maybe 10 platinums on my list, and it might be growing because of the auto pop feature that PlayStation 5 has, where there are games that I shouldn't have any respect for getting, like the Ratalika games. I have 4 or 5 of them, and then they're basically duplicated. So I got those games twice, and that's about the extent that it goes with the shameful like $1 platinums. You know, like I have like maybe 10 to 15 now, and then the auto pops. But I don't go out and do that anymore. I try to build more of a respectable list than something that is I'm buying games just to get the trophies. Now, I wish that I was still this is so complicated because I wish that I was still into buying those $1 games to pad my stats, because I have those, I've told you this before, but that I have those PS3 games where it's 1%, and whenever I add a new game and then I get 100%, that boosts the completion rate. And if it doesn't take very long, it's just properly putting my completion rate where it should be. But I don't do that anymore, so I just play games that are on my backlog and I complete them. This is actually an episode idea that I want to go back to later, but it's like games that we gave up on and games that are like glitched out, so that'll be like 2 different topics, but I think that'll be really fun to discuss those games that we gave up on and why.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I get that. Yeah, it's always the games themselves. It when you look away from it from such a far distance, it's hard to know, right? Like I've got 558,000 gamer score right now, and it's like, how many of those games are important and meaningful in terms of, to me personally, that's sort of what matters more than the number at the end of the day. So it's not something anyone should feel ashamed of or feel like they somehow need to do better. I mean, as well, it's kind of stupid to talk about it in that way almost, because it's like, you know, this is a hobby, this is just fun at the end of the day, and it's, you know, it's just, you get that dopamine from getting the achievements and the trophies, and you feel that relief and that burst of happiness, but it's all video games, you know, it's all whatever, right?
Yeah, it's awesome that we're all playing video games. And again, if people want to get the dollar platinums and boost their numbers that way, that's all for them. But like I was saying with my games, like I love to look at my list and see, you know, Persona 4 Golden, Ghost of Tsushima, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Watch Dogs Legion, Final Fantasy 7. These are all my recent games. Resident Evil Village, Ratchet and Clank,
Yep.
MLB 14.
Yep.
So the idea is the list is full of like not trash. It's not full of stuff that was just, oh yeah, I did that in 30 minutes. Yeah, like it's all stuff that I put effort into, and I made they're games that are not a must play necessarily, but they're games that are on my backlog and that other people say I should play, and that's what I try to aim for.
Yeah, I lost my mind at some point and decided to get a few bad games that are also hard to complete, and I was like, I'm going to complete these games. So that's like the opposite end of the spectrum, right? Like the game is both bad and it's really hard to complete, and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to go for these. And yeah, some of that would come up on stuff that I've given up on, but some wouldn't. There's some stuff I want to go back to. So that would be an interesting conversation for sure.
Absolutely, and I have so many games that I want to go back to. Let's go ahead and wrap this one up. Let's talk about the trophy and achievement of the week.
Yeah, I guess you should go. You should go. I've already sort of given one. I've got another one, but you should probably go with your trophy first.
Absolutely, and my trophy of the week is actually from a new DLC release, which I'm excited to go back to, and I don't know when I'm gonna get it, but it just came out August 31st, and today is September 2nd, so this is just a couple days ago. It's from the Maneater game. They released a new DLC called Truth Quest, and I saw this trophy that stuck out to me, and it's called Fanfare, and you can eat all the questers in the DLC, and I'm like, that sounds like fun. Maybe this is a situation where you have to like make a save and then eat them all and then load the save so that you have like you don't miss out on any quests. But I just think it's awesome that there's an option to eat the questers. I think that's hilarious.
Yeah, that game. I need to get to that game. It was on PS Plus and it's on Game Pass as well.
Yeah.
So and I've heard such mixed things about it, and yeah, it seems to have a great sense of humor and in that sense.
It does have a great sense of humor, and I don't know the actor's name, but man, he is good in it. And he is just a narrator, and he's just telling jokes over the gameplay. And so he's like a documentary voice guy. I don't know what that's called, but like he's just saying facts and reading things, but then he's also making commentary on it. Like you're the documentary, like the camera's on you, the shark, and he's doing the documentary stuff over it, and it's very, very funny. But what's so interesting is I don't know if I would have played this game without trophies. And I think that is such an interesting idea where I actually do play some games because I'm like, I will try that out because I saw that the trophies on there look fun. Because this is a very arcade-like game without arcade-like features. So no high score, nothing like that. In a game like that, I just feel like it would be wasting time. But it doesn't feel like wasting time because I was making progress throughout the entire game. And that is really, really fun and interesting to me. And I do not regret playing it. It's not like, and there are games that I have platinum that I do regret. Like, I'm not going to lie, I didn't like stories that much. There was this free PS Plus game, and it's about this fox, and it's more of like a isometric third-person slasher. You kind of go around, and it has so many different stories and endings, and you play through the level, and then whichever route you pick, it gets you an ending. And there's so many endings in that game, dude. I don't remember, like 63 or something. They're so long, and I don't remember if you could skip them. But it was an indie game that I gave it a shot, and then I was like, I just didn't like that. And I still got the platinum, but I played the game and I didn't like it. But I love Maneater. I love Maneater, and I recommend people play it. It's so weird. The thing is, to me, is it reminds me of my childhood because I used to play Jaws at my Aunt Rita's house, and the game is just kind of like Jaws on steroids, where there's more systems, there's more quests, there's better writing. It just takes the idea of the Jaws game and then brings it into a new creation, and I think it's brilliant. I also like the art style too.
Yeah, I mean, this is like the dumbest comparison anyone's ever made, but in terms of the game, it kind of interests me more because of how divisive it is. Like, I've seen reviewers pan the game and love the game, so it's kind of got that like 12 minutes aspect to it where it's like some people really love it and vibe with the gameplay and the humor and the voice acting, and then other people are like, this sucks, it's terrible, avoid it. And that to me it's more interesting than a game that gets like 5s or sometimes even more interesting than a game that gets like sevens. Yeah, it's on my list. It's on my backlog for sure. In terms of my other achievement of the week, if we're ready to go on to that,
Oh, absolutely.
it's called Mightier Than the Sword, which is it's also in Dishonored: Death of the Outsider, and it's to shoot a guard in the head with a fountain pen. I love this achievement because you get this in the game. You have this weapon that's almost. I think it's been in games and movies before, but it's kind of like like the wrist gun, like under your wrist. There's like a thing that shoots bolts, right? You
Yeah.
know what I'm talking about, like that
Yes.
that kind of thing. You have one of those, and you can buy an upgrade for it that allows you to shoot household objects out of it instead of just bolts. So you can go around and like pick up like rusty nails and fountain pens and stuff like that. And there's not many objects you can do it with, but you can do it with, some more improvised ammo. And when you do it as well, it's really good attention to detail because when you pull the weapon out, it shows you like under your wrist, like what you've got loaded into it based on what you picked up in the world. And it like the game keeps like a memory of like everything you've loaded into it, which is really really cool to me. So you can just see like when you pick up a fountain pen, this like rotating fountain pen just like under your wrist ready to shoot into someone. So and also it functions exactly the same in terms of the damage profile of a regular ammunition as well. It's not like it's weaker or anything. So you can go up to a guard with it and just like nail them in the head and they'll just like flop over, like go flying from just being hit by a fountain pen going at like 70 miles per hour or something. It's a great achievement and it's a great upgrade as well.
That is really cool. That is really cool. Good idea for a weapon. I love when video games get creative and doing different kinds of weapons. If you think about all the weapons across all the games you've played and like how many unique ones there are, I mean, if you just think about Battlefield and Call of Duty, you can just think about how many versions of the MP5 there are. There's one. And it's just like the games that get creative with guns and like really make it fun. Like an example that I have maybe would be definitely Doom. Doom has a lot of awesome weapons. And then probably Deathloop that's coming out. I think that the guns in that game look different and like they function different. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you've of course forgotten Halo, which
Yes, that's true
sort
too.
of perfected that idea in many ways because in the Halo games, at least until 343 came along, every weapon, the design incentive is that every weapon in those games has specifically a different purpose. Like it's not like, oh, there's 5 assault rifles, right? There's one assault rifle and that's it, and it works for very specific things like the tiny flood forms. That's what you're supposed to use it for, and then the plasma pistol, you're supposed to use it to get rid of energy shields and basically nothing else. Like they made guns where it's like they're all different and they're all interesting and they all serve different purposes. You struggle if you try and put like a square peg through a round hole. If you try and use one type of gun for a purpose it's not meant for, it kind of struggles unless you use the overpowered guns. There's a couple of overpowered guns, admittedly, like the battle rifle and the Halo 1 Magnum just is better than anything basically. But yeah, I love that too when games really think about their weapons and it's not like, I mean, like you say with Call of Duty, it feels like a lot of those games are kind of just, even when the weapons are different, like even when they're like, oh, it's an MP5 in the past, oh, it's an MP5 in the future,
Yeah.
and it's not quite called the MP5. Like it feels like it's just the exact same gun, but they just give it like a different coat of paint. Like it uses the same, it's got the same fire rate, it's got the same damage profile, it's got the same range profile, it's the same gun, but they just call it something slightly different and then
Yes.
ship it out. Or even like sometimes you see that with guns that aren't even the same gun. Like you might see that from like an MP40 to an MP5 or something. So
Absolutely.
yeah, that gets tiring. I will say the one defense and the one thing that I do like about stuff like COD and Battlefield with their guns is I feel like it's taught me so much about real life weapons.
Oh,
Like
absolutely.
people that aren't gamers or haven't watched like a ton of action movies, I guess it's like most people have like no idea. Like they wouldn't, if you showed them a gun, they'd not be able to name that gun. Whereas I feel like I have like pretty decent odds sometimes because I've just played so many shooter games that I'm like I know all of these guns and what they're like and how they like how fast they might fire and how much. I mean, obviously damages aren't accurate in games, but you know, stuff like that. That's what's really cool about it. I will say. So there's definitely advantages to the other games, but yeah, I totally agree. It's so much better when games get inventive with their weapon systems.
Not just looking at guns and naming them too, but like actual components of weapons. Like I learned a bunch of what stuff from games that are like, who knows if people even know what like a clip is, Because we just take that for granted because we play so many video games that we're like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, we're just reloading the clip. It's like, well, what's the clip? It's the thing that holds the ammunition, But it's
Yeah, well, people
It's-
are going to get angry because you've said clip and not magazine. So
well, yeah, that's true. But
people always seem to get angry about that all the time. And yeah, like even if you've used one or the other properly, they'll still get angry. It doesn't matter.
right,
You've done it now.
I've done it. It's over for me. I'm canceled.
I have to send some gun people this time of the podcast and
Yeah,
see.
I'll timestamp
see
it
what
and
they
just
say.
piss them off.
Yeah.
I don't know very much. I don't know very much about guns, but video games definitely have taught me more than I would have ever known if I didn't play video games. That's for sure. All right, let's end the show. Do you have any final thoughts?
Yeah, go out there, play more games than we did.
Yes,
Do that.
for
That's everyone's
sure.
mission.
That is everyone's mission, and it shouldn't be too hard. Unless you're playing something really long, sometimes it does take 1 or 2 weeks to get through something. But I hope
That's not acceptable. Sorry. Even if you're playing a 500-hour game, you need to play like 6 of them.
by the next time I come back, I can play more Ghost of Tsushima, because that right now is like all I want to play, and I'm about to finish this Persona game, and then I want to play more of that, but I'm gonna get my homework done today, and then I'm gonna play as much Ghost of Tsushima as I possibly can. Did you see that Twitter video that I uploaded?
No, I didn't.
Oh, you should check it out. I'll link it to you after the show. But like, man, I got into this duel in Ghost of Tsushima, and I did play it just a bit. It was probably 30 minutes. That's why I didn't mention it. But there's this duel arena where you can fight other islanders, but you're using like a bamboo stick, and it's one hit, and then the round goes to whoever person, and first to get 5 rounds wins. And it is really fun because I got like a 30-second clip, and maybe halfway through it starts where, well, I mean, it's a 30-second clip, and I scored 2 points, and then I step back. The lady that I was against comes after me, and it's just like counter, dodge, counter, hit, and then like she blocks, I'm countered, and I'm dodging, and it's just like this thing where the combat is so fluid and so fast, it looks like real sword fighting. It looks so awesome, and I was like, dude, I have to upload this. This looks so sick. And I ended up losing that round because I couldn't. There was so much going on, but you could see right at the end, I hit the L1 button, and my block came back, but it was too late, and she hit me like right in the forearms, and I'm like, this game is awesome. This game is so sick. I just can't believe
Yeah,
it.
well, yeah. Hopefully we'll be able to talk about it more next week.
Absolutely.
Be good.
I've been playing it on Lethal Plus, so it's the hardest difficulty. Swords do real fucking damage. Real fucking damage. But that's it. Thanks for listening, everyone. Happy hunting. Peace out.
See ya.
Thank you so much for listening to Complete Edition. If you like the content, consider supporting us on patreon.com/completion club. If you have any questions or would like to reach us, email completionclub@gmail.com. Thank you for listening to Complete Edition.